if you're interested in public comment, or at least show your hand so we can get a good sense of how many. All right, seeing that we have quite a few, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set public comment at 2 minutes apiece, and then just to remind folks that if you've already spoken on this issue as part of the public comment, we don't allow repeat customers, so to speak. I'm sorry. No. That's great. Okay, so welcome. Thank you.
I'm Samantha McCarthy with Stop West Nile Spraying Now. They put on a very long presentation. We have a number of very educated and expert people who live in the Davis community, and we would like to be able to put on an equally long presentation to get all of what we see of the facts out, as well as we would like to ask the City Council to oppose in an official motion any aerial or truck spraying, and echo that the board appointees make a point that they will also take that position. There are a number of communities across this country that no longer spray because they see West Nile virus having gone into chronic endemicity. And what that means is it's just in the population. You can keep using stronger and stronger and stronger chemicals. You can keep building resistance, or you can say that yes, it can be a bad disease, but what it needs to do is be handled at the larval stage. If it is not, and the district resorts to spraying and resorts to adulticiding, then it means that they are not doing their job. It means they're not handling it at appropriate stage, and it means that they are putting public health at risk. And we believe in public health. Says here, public health based on facts, not fear. We see this spraying as a public panacea. It looks like they're doing something. What they're doing is creating resistant mosquitoes. They're creating cases of asthma. They're creating cases of cancer. The pyrethrins and synthetic pyrethroids, even the natural ones, are endocrine disruptors. Those create cancer in children. They create large breasts. They create problems in young pubescent people. It's not good. They also create cancer later in life. The organophosphates are neurotoxic. They're problems. If the back east cannot spray when they have mosquitoes that are actually more dangerous, not more dangerous, but they transmit more. The environments there transmit more. Here we're in an arid environment. 1 in 1,000 mosquitoes might transmit the disease. It's not the same thing, but yet they've recognized that it's just part of the community, and they no longer aerial spray because of the risk to public health. That's in our nation's capital. The legislators, other people there, they don't want it. We don't want it either. And we ask the City Council specifically act to do a motion to do that, as well as allow us to present as much 15-minute long presentation just like they've been allowed. We have experts in all of these fields. They are not limited to that in and of themselves. And we see this as nothing more than a public panacea based on fear generated throughout the media. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. Welcome, Alan.
I'm Alan Miller, citizen of Davis. I'd like to take you back to 1980. A young man named Jerry Brown was governor, and he decided to ban the spraying of the medfly because so much of his base was opposed to aerial spraying for the medfly, and it basically cost him the senatorial election. I'm getting something through my headset here. Apparently Governor Brown is still governor, and he's running for re-election. So he learned his lesson, and he's not going to ban the spraying for the mosquito because he's old and has learned his lesson. Well, okay, so no help there. But the other day, about 2 months ago, I heard over my house, and after about the third pass, it suddenly occurred to me what that sound was. And you know what I thought of immediately? God damn it, my cat's outside. And you know, I know you guys aren't the ones making the decision, but So, okay, I understand that, but the city needs to really go out of its way when there's chemicals being dropped on the population. I mean, I got notified when there was some guy loose who they were looking for, 2 in the morning who was lost. And we should know when we're being sprayed, because there's 2 things I can do. 1, I can bring my cat in. And 2, I can do what I do on picnic day, and that's get the hell out of Davis. Thanks.
Thank you, Alan. Welcome. Who's ever next? Deborah.
To sneak in just to get something she left here.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Deborah.
Good evening, council members. I'm Vicki Kramer. I'm a resident of Davis and also the chief of the vector-borne disease section at the California Department of Public Health. I have decades of experience working on mosquito ecology and control, as well as vector-borne disease prevention, surveillance, and control. West Nile virus is a very serious disease. We've had over 4,000 human cases reported to our department over the past decade, and of those cases, over 100 people have died. This year, we have West Nile virus throughout the state. We have the highest level of infected mosquitoes ever recorded in California. And this is despite having one of the best surveillance programs for West Nile virus in the country, which just allows us to detect and monitor West Nile virus activity, which in turn triggers control events. Mosquito control is our best defense against West Nile virus. I have personally spoken to West Nile virus survivors. They're debilitated for life. They call me to thank me for our efforts. And in fact, this year I got a call saying, hey, I'm so glad to hear Sacramento Yellow Mosquito and Vector Control District is spraying over the city of Sacramento. If I could only make people understand how much I have suffered from this disease, they would not think twice about the control efforts being done. We have one of the best mosquito control programs in the country. We're nationally recognized for the integrated pest management programs that our agencies use, targeting, as Mr. Goodman indicated, the aquatic immature stages of mosquitoes. However, that's not always enough. And at times, when you have high infection rates of adult mosquitoes, you need to do aerial control. The sooner you do it in the summer, the better. You can't wait until late August. By then, it's too late. You're going to have a lot of human cases. So by spraying in July, based on those surveillance indicators, you are preventing people from dying. We have published studies indicating that aerial spraying over Sacramento has saved people from morbidity and mortality from West Nile virus.
Vicki, if I could ask you to close.
Oh, to close.
It's
am I already 3 minutes?
Yeah, so 2 minutes.
Okay, all right. So with that, I just want to say I'm here to support their efforts. They do an excellent job, and I think everybody in this room should recognize that the public health risks from West Nile virus outweigh those from the minute amount of pesticides that are used, which is typically less than 1 ounce per acre, if you can picture minute amounts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vicki. Thank you, Zoe.
Oh. Can you see me down here?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, sir.
And this
Welcome.
microphone. I'm Jim Northup, a resident of Davis, and it's fun to be rubbing elbows here with Dr. Kramer, was, as I believe it, a student of Dick Garcia at UC Berkeley, my alma mater. I rubbed elbows with Dr. Garcia when I was working with Bob Washino here at UC Davis, a long time ago. But he ran the premier laboratory in the world. I'm sorry about it. He ran the premier laboratory in the world at the time for the research into the biological control of the mosquito vectors of disease. And I had the great honor of being able to work with him and have my work sponsored by him. I have a number of questions that are best not posed to you in the council, as has been pointed out, but to Mr. Goodman and Vicki here. One has to do with, I have been collaborating with a mathematician here, Dr. Jack Milton, who unfortunately is suffering from a throat cancer. and is unable to speak for us today to you. But he and I have been endeavoring to develop an accurate mathematical model for the dynamics of the ecology of this West Nile virus. And in the time that we have been looking at this question, by far the best sample material available to us for review is the mosquito sampling performed by the state vector control people and our local vector control district. I've had very wonderful conversations with Paula Macedo, their research director, and am quite content with her expertise. She did make a very accurate measurement of the question of the efficacy of this spray material of the pyrethrin insecticide in the 2007 spray events. But in the course of the 10 years now that this virus has been present.
Sir, I hate to jump in. You're 2 minutes. If I could ask you to
Okay.
to close.
My quick request is, I know at the moment, working for our vector control district is probably the world's most proficient expert at the culture of the mosquito pathogenic fungus Laginidium giganteum. And I hope that Debbie Dritz's presence in your staff now as a vector ecologist means that you are going to broaden your biocontrol strategies to include perhaps inoculating the storm drains and sewer systems of Sacramento County with Laginidium, where we can have a persistent biocontrol, such as she helped prove with Dr. Wishino back 35 years ago, 7 years of effective control with one inoculation in a rice field in Sutter County. So,
Sir, I'm going to ask you to close.
Okay, so please actually increase the scope and types of biocontrol activities against the larvae of mosquitoes. That we discussed this, presented an article to Dave Brown and Glenna Trochet from Dr. Bowman.
Sir, you're saying great stuff. If I could ask you to hand the mic to the next person, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. You can have her 1 minute.
One final assertion.
2 minutes if you want.
We presented this, and it's very scientifically demonstrated that a 6% increase in the mortality induced on the early larval populations of seasonally cyclic mosquito populations produces greater than a 90% decrease in the late July population. Your spray endeavors have never produced greater than a 50% decrease in a 3-day cumulative spray. So it's far better to put your money up front.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Meredith Herman. I'm a Davis resident. In the 1980s, YOLO was combined with UBA as for the Mosquito Control Board or Mosquito Control District rather than with Sacramento. We had a biological larva control so effective that it was exported to Colombia. It's one that the gentleman who just spoke was working with. And it killed mosquitoes there that carry malaria. Now we have chemicals to kill mosquitoes that carry West Nile virus. Why have we regressed? Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Ron.
Mayor Wolk, council members, good evening. I'm Ron Clement. The good news is that since the district completed its aerial spraying, I haven't had to buy any DEET. The bad news is my organic garden is no longer organic. Now, I know this is a community that doesn't feel that it's necessary to always do things the way everyone else does them. It's not a community that needs to go down the well-beaten track. We look for the better way, the right way. Now, I don't know why we need to do aerial spraying within this community in a densely populated area. I don't know why our citizens can't step up and address the problems we've got here. If we've got standing water, then let's do something about it. If we need to put out more mosquito dunks, let's do that. I know as a citizen, I'd be happy to walk my precinct, as I've done many times, hand out information. I know neighbors would let me go in their backyard if they won't let these folks go in the backyard. This is Davis. Let's do it different. Let's do it better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Good seeing you. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Julie Ostwich, and I've been active in the activism against the West Nile spraying since it first started. I want to talk a little bit about risk. The risk of West Nile infection, as Mr. Gordon mentioned, is there's 311 cases to date in California. Okay, this is the number, 0.000008113, less than 1% risk of developing West Nile virus in the entire state of California. Okay, in Sacramento County, we've had 7 human cases. 0.0004787 is the risk ratio, less than 1% again. Risk of death from West Nile virus, 0.00 in the state of California. 0.0003131, less than 1%. These are statistics taken right off of the West Nile, California website in the state, for the state. Risk of death in Sacramento County, 0.0006839, less than 1%. Okay, we don't have an epidemic of West Nile virus, yet we're spending a lot of money and we're poisoning people with dangerous organophosphate chemicals, spraying over people who are unaware while they're out walking their dogs, pushing their babies in strollers, or their kids are about to go camping. That's what's going on here. And these chemicals are known to cause cancer. It may not cause an adverse medical condition right away, but 20 years from now, how do you know that that cancer that you have or your child got wasn't from the spraying of these dangerous pesticides? Here's the risk for cancer. Men. And this is in the United States, 1 out of 3 now, 1 out of 2 for men and 1 out of 3 for women. What we've got going on is a merry-go-round of pesticide spraying, and we need to get off of it. We need to stop it. We need to go back to larviciding, as Jim mentioned, the speaker before, a couple before me, and increase the larviciding program, because that 6% decrease that can take place in the early part of the year can induce a 90% decrease, and the supposed need for spraying will just disappear. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Do you have an overhead at all?
We
That's fine. I don't want to.
We don't.
You're starting. Okay. My name's
theoretically
Stephen.
we do, but
My name is Stephen Barassa, and the Sacramento Bee did an article when they were spraying over Davis in the city of Woodland and the city of Davis. Davis and Woodland targeted for West Nile spraying this week. There was a quote from the that says, "The insecticide will target only mosquitoes," said Luz Rodriguez, the district's public information officer. Is Luz here tonight? Okay, and said, "So it imposes minimal risks to humans, animals, and the environment." That's a quote from Rodriguez. The news reported that they're spraying Trumpet EC insecticide, and the information is right on the website for Fight the Bite, and it says there's, besides being deadly to bees, and it states right on there, so possibly a link to colony collapse, but the hazards to humans and domestic animals: danger corrosive, causes irreversible eye and skin damage, causes skin burns, may be fatal if swallowed or absorbed through the skin. Do not get in the eyes or the skin or on your clothing. Do not breathe vapor or spray mist. That's going right over the city of Davis for 2 days in a row. Also dangerous to the environment. It's hazardous. It's a pesticide. It's hazardous to fish. It's toxic to fish, aquatic invertebrates, wildlife. That includes bats, birds. So if you got bats that look like they're on rabies, maybe they should guess again. It might be pesticide poisoning, because let's face it, they're sprayed about a dozen times in the Yolo Causeway right now. It's a nature preserve. And this insecticide targets about 100 insects. It's not just mosquitoes. So, you think nature preserve, you're targeting their food supply and poisoning it? Does that make any sense? They sprayed that about a dozen times, and they're also spraying directly between the cities of Davis and Woodland about a dozen times so far this year. So I'd like to ask Luz Rodriguez, or a representative from Vector Control, how do they make this spray just target mosquitoes for our safety? Thank you.
thank you very much.
Also, I'd like to urge Davis to ban the spraying right away. That's the least you could do. Thank you.
And if you'd like to leave something for the council, you feel welcome to leave it with the city clerk. That goes for anyone else who brought materials. Be part of the record. Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Hello, Don Mooney. I'm also with Stop West Nile Spraying. resident of Davis, and as we were saying, ban spraying. You know what? If we could be a nuclear-free zone, we could be a spray-free zone. So I would encourage the council to take a position on this. This was an issue that came before the city, you know, I think it was 2005, 2006 when we were sprayed before. A couple of things. I think you should hear a presentation from the community that is concerned about this. As you can tell from the public comment, only giving 2 minutes, it gets kind of fragmented as people not having a chance to really get up and explain things. And ask some representatives of the community to prepare a presentation for you. Because there are communities that have said no to spraying, that have done effective mosquito control and adult mosquito control without spraying. One of the concerns I have in terms of looking at this when they talk about the organophosphates being more effective, well, maybe they're more effective because they're more toxic. Maybe it's not the resistance, maybe it's the fact that the indication that they're more toxic to the people, as well as the wildlife and nature. The other matter is previously the district used to tell people, stay indoors. Wash off your patio. Don't wash your fruit. Wash your vegetables before you eat it. They don't provide that warning. There is a lack of concern about the public health with regards to that. And I think the reason they don't do that is because if they did that, then people would be saying, well, what's wrong with what you're spraying? Why do we have to worry about it? The first time they sprayed in 2005, or they started spraying in Sacramento in 2005, 2006, there was news reports of people washing down their furniture, washing down the children's play toys, washing down the playgrounds. They don't offer that now. And I'll close here very quick.
Don.
And I'd point out, one of the days they sprayed, we weren't here, we went to Disneyland, but one of the days they sprayed was Wednesday night. Wednesday market, when everybody in Davis, not everybody in Davis, but the biggest night in Davis for being outside with your family, with your children, and they started spraying on a Wednesday night. That's a lack of concern for the community, it's a lack of concern for public health, it's a lack of concern for Davis, and it's disrespectful.
Thank you, Don. Welcome.
Hi, nice to have a chance to be here. My name is Kim Glazard, and I am from Sacramento. And I have been involved in this, I've seen this spraying for the last 10 years. In fact, before they even started spraying, we were involved. I have a group called Organic Sacramento. And I want to reiterate the fact that there are communities throughout the United States who have chosen other tactics than adulticide spraying or any kind of chemical over urban populations, aerial spraying particularly. And in Washington, D.C., as it was mentioned earlier, the nation's capital decided not to spray adulticide specifically. And their actual success rate was shown a couple years later. So I have there's a couple documents here, and if you want, I'll leave you copies. But an article in the Washington Post on July 30th, 2007 says, once ominous West Nile wanes in area threat. So it was successful not to spray because the actual infection and the disease within the mosquitoes and within the population went into chronic endemicity. So that is a possibility. That is a problem when there is constant spraying over and over and over again, because you disrupt the cycle of the mosquitoes, but you also disrupt that opportunity for it to just go into the population. I think Davis has an opportunity right now. It is a unique city. It has a unique population, and I think that it would be really good for this city to take a big step in challenging whether they want to continue the same old for the next 10 years. It's been 10 years. Spray, 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 spray. So I know I'm running low on time. However, I wanted to say that there are a number of risks from pesticides and myths on the risks of pesticides that you need to know about. There's a book that came out, and I will leave, but rigorous testing myth, it hasn't been rigorously tested. It's been tested on one chemical at a time, not the synergistic effects. I know you're going to say, but let me just tell you, also small amount myth, as well as breakdown myths. So I will leave these with you, and I do hope that you will give an opportunity for a larger, more broad-scale presentation in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And feel free to leave that with the city clerk if you'd like. Welcome.
Carla Visha. I'm a physician, educated at UC Davis, and also trained in complementary and alternative medicine. Dan, I came here to speak about the toxicity of the pesticides, but I am so appalled at this process tonight, and you particularly, giving people 2 minutes when how much time did this guy have? When Dave Brown was the manager, he was a decent, Gary Goodman was a decent man, I thought, but since he's taken over, he's even worse than Dave Brown was. You giving people 2 minutes, it's just unreasonable. Brett, I asked you to give the expert, the entomologist here, equal time to make his presentation. What have you done about that? Nothing. Lucas, I've called you. You don't even answer my phone calls. And Rob, I don't know you, but I'm going to get to know you, because if you're my representatives, I'm appalled at this process. And this kind of spraying, I called Gary Goodman, and he practically laughed in my face and said, you know, it doesn't matter if you live in an organic community. I live in Village Homes. We're going to spray you regardless. We got 1 day notice. That in and of itself is appalling. So if this is going to happen again, and my understanding is he wants to spray and spray and spray, because he gets paid by the chemical company. If he doesn't do the spraying, he's out of work. So I am so angry right now, because what they sprayed is highly toxic to the beneficial insects, to the birds that eat those beneficial insects, to the ground, to the water. This stuff stays around. It doesn't just dissipate. And there's no such thing as a low enough dose that it's not toxic. All pesticides are toxic, and the results take time to show up. That's why people think they're immune, but they're not. And the children and the elderly are most at risk. So keep that in mind as well. But again, I changed the venue of what I was going to say here because of this process.
Thank you.
If you're my representative, then represent me, and don't just sit up there like gods and say you've got 2 minutes to talk.
Thank you, Carla.
Dan, as the board member also who sees the budget, I just wanted to clarify that Gary is not paid by chemical companies in any way.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Sure.
Welcome, Elaine.
My name is Elaine Roberts-Musser. I'm speaking as a private citizen. I'm going to come at this from a slightly different angle. It's a known fact that mosquitoes tend to go after certain people, and I happen to be one of those people. They just see me as one big filet mignon, and it's really tough. I am actually thankful for the spraying because I get eaten alive. I have to stay in the evenings. I even get them in the house. I get bitten in the house, and I don't want to have to wear DEET all the time because that has its own set of problems. So I'm actually grateful that they're doing this spraying, and I hope they keep it up, because the bottom line is if you don't get on top of this problem, it only gets worse. So you want to get on top of the problem so that you don't have huge outbreaks of disease. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Welcome, Rodney.
Rodney Robinson. Just anecdotally, and I'm thankful that the fellow who spoke about trumpet reminded me of this, that trumpet is a wide spectrum insecticide, and working in my little garden plot throughout the spring and summer, I noticed a dramatic change in insects in the garden after the spraying. You know, we took precautions to cover our garden with plastics to prevent as much spray as possible. But since the spraying has occurred, our tomato production, the squash, beans, other veg crops that we have grown the productivity has just dropped off. I mean, a handful of tomatoes in, a month and a half is, it's just not appropriate in this growing environment. The kind of lost my track. I wasn't really preparing to speak tonight, but that caught my mind. The other thing was the trumpet also, don't get it on your body, on your skin, and yet we have kids playing in our schoolyards and our playgrounds, et cetera, with equipment that's not washed off. It's a liability that the community, that the city, has a responsibility to deal with, and it's not being done. And that, I think, is a significant factor that needs to be addressed. These pesticides are toxic. It's been quite a few years since I took my toxicology courses at UC Berkeley, and so I'm not really prepared to talk as an expert on the subject, but I do remember that organophosphates are extremely dangerous, and they're not appropriate for the application that they're being utilized for. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. Welcome, Judy.
Hello, Joyce Langreich, a citizen of Davis. I came here for the water issue, but this has been very educational. I just want to say we do have a problem with the West Nile virus, but several people have brought up other methods that they used back, several decades ago to reduce the mosquito population. If the Sacramento Yellow Mosquito and Vector Control could really look into this. I'm in Davis the whole entire summer, and I did not know we even sprayed. I have a child here. I try to stay pretty much on top of what's happening in the city, and I'm going to reach out to the PTA of my son's school and ask the other parents, did people know that they were being sprayed? As you know, the Davis schools are what keep the Davis community. I mean, it's one of the shining stars. That's why our property values are where they are. And there are a lot of kids that are out around dusk. And I hope that if the city decides to go in this direction, that there is more public awareness. But I also ask for this control to really reach out to these resources and use the technology that was developed decades ago as another method of control. We're an agricultural state. If one man's tomato garden is being affected, can you imagine the tomato industry in our state? Last time I read that we produce over 2/3 of the world's tomatoes in the state of California. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Anyone else for public comment? Okay, thank you, everyone. Bringing it back to council for